Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Happy Thursday, everybody, and it is prediction day. Today, Brian and I are giving our predictions and our game records for the Notre Dame versus USC game happening Saturday night inside of Notre Dame Stadium, annual rivalry game for the Jules Shillelagh Trophy. And then afterwards, Brian, we're going to spend the rest of the show talking some ball, man. We're going to be talking about a lot of the other college football games that are going on. We're going to take a deep dive preview into about 5 of them. Then we have a bunch of other games that we're going to mention, ones that you guys should keep your eye out on, but obviously none more important than the one happening Saturday night inside of South Bend, inside of Notre Dame Stadium. Brian, I am beyond excited for this one, man. This is going to be awesome.
I can't wait for this game. It's going to be a blast, but you know what? That's the life of not always what you want it to be. Quick question, Trev. How's my sound? Sound okay? Everything good?
It got real, like it sounded like you were talking in slow motion there for just a second. That was interesting.
All right, so I'm gonna let you go out and come back in and see if we can.
Well, sounds good. Well, listen, everybody, Brian's on the road, but we're still podcasting like champions. You guys know what the rule is. But listen, today, as you guys know, while Brian gets his audio figured out for the podcast for today, today is prediction day, and Notre Dame plays USC. Number 13 Notre Dame in the country takes on the 20th ranked USC Trojans at night inside of Notre Dame Stadium. 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Right now, Notre Dame is still 9.5-point favorites on FanDuel. I just went and made sure that we looked at that. Then the over-under right now is still set at 61.5. And if you guys have been following what we've been talking about all week, these are two really, really high-powered offenses going back and forth at it. A game that it's going to tell us a lot about the Notre Dame offense if they can get back on the right track, but it's definitely going to tell us a lot about the defense. And this defense has turned things around the last couple of weeks, but now it's time. This is the culmination game like we've talked about all week. All of the things that you did well against Boise State and NC State is going to have to carry over, Brian, into what is now probably the biggest matchup left on their regular season schedule. From an optics standpoint, potentially from a talent standpoint, is going to be a really interesting one.
Yeah, it is. Do I sound like a human now?
You do.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
No, it is. And look, and the game's made tougher now. We found out today that Gabriel Rubio won't be playing in the game. And so, your best run defender's out for this game. So it's going to be a battle. And, but this is what last year's team went through, right? I mean, last year's team, went through injuries all the time. And this is about the time of the year. I mean, the NC State game would have been the Stanford game, which is the last game that Notre Dame had Benjamin Morrison. We're a game removed, the Louisville game, which is when they lost Boubacar Traore. We're 3 games removed from the Purdue game, where last year they lost Jordan Patelho and Ashton Craig for the season and Billy Shroud for a chunk of the year. So, those things you look at and you say, like, okay, yeah, that sucks. You're down a guy. Well, USC's down 2 starting running backs. Like, that's football. That's college football. Who has the better depth? Who has the better, preparation? Who has the who has the mental toughness to overcome those type of things and go out in there and win this huge game? Because what I love about this game, Trev, is just from a Notre Dame fan and a college football standpoint is the game means something this year. And USC fans can be all up in their feelings about a comment I made yesterday, but the reality is in the counting this year, the last 15 years, USC's only been ranked 5 times going into this matchup. And so the games just haven't meant a whole lot. Now, this game means something. USC needs this game to build a playoff resume. Notre Dame needs this game to build a playoff resume. And that's what makes this rivalry great. It's what the rivalry used to always be. It's like there was something on the line for both teams. And sadly, the last 15 years, there's been too many years where nothing was on the line for either team. But lately, obviously, Notre Dame's had a lot more to play for. USC is trying to rebuild under Lincoln Riley. This is now the second time and really, or third time in 4 years that going into this game, it means something for at least one of the teams. Obviously in 2022, it meant something for USC. They needed to beat Notre Dame to have a shot to clinch a playoff berth in the Pac-12 title game. In 2023, USC was undefeated and ranked in the top 10. They had a path to the to the playoff. Last year, Notre Dame, needs to beat USC to secure a playoff spot. And this year, they're both going to this game with a shot for the playoffs. And so that just adds something to this, but it also puts pressure on both teams. Say, who's going to handle that pressure the best? Who's going to handle that moment the best? And the winner is going to say, okay, you're going to go into, late October and say, we've now put ourselves in position where for Notre Dame, if we went out, we're in. If you're USC, you can stub your toe one more time if you win a game like this. You lose this game, you have to run the table to be in the playoffs. Like, I actually don't think USC gets knocked out of the playoffs if they lose this game, Trev. I don't. I mean, I think, they may not be able to host perhaps if they don't win out, but like, you look at USC's schedule and what they have left on the schedule. I mean, they've got Oregon left on the schedule. They have, looking at Nebraska on the road, who's ranked in the top 25 left on the schedule. They have Iowa at home. If Iowa beats Penn State this weekend, Iowa's going to be knocking on the door of the top 25 with their resume that they're building. And so, but it puts you in a situation if you lose this game, if you're USC, where you're in the situation Notre Dame is in, where you can't afford to lose another one because you're not getting in at 9-3. And for Notre Dame, it's like you lose this game, you're out. I mean, you not only are likely out, you should be out because they won't have a resume good enough to be a playoff team unless they're going up against a bunch of 4-loss teams for that 9-12 spot. So I love that there's so much on the line for this game. That's what our rivalry is supposed to be. I have my feelings about whether or not the rivalry should continue based on the what USC wants out of the rivalry. But as long as they play it, you want the games to be like this. And for Notre Dame, this is your last chance, as we've been saying all week, to really make a statement. This is a statement game for Notre Dame, opportunity for Notre Dame. You're going to make a statement one way or the other, Trev. It's just about whether or not you're making a good statement or a not so good statement.
Oh, agreed. Look, man, like you said, this is what you want this rivalry to come down to, and it's a prove-it game for both teams. For Notre Dame, can you prove that you're back? And you decimated NC State, you decimated Arkansas, you decimated Boise State, but those are teams that you should. Yes, those are teams that can compete with Notre Dame on any given Saturday. But on paper, this is the last 3 games were games that Notre Dame should have won and won handily. Really, Purdue as well. When you look at USC, you have it at the point of they just picked up their biggest Big Ten win since they've joined the league. Are they back? People aren't having enough of a discussion around if USC is back. USC hasn't been relevant in quite some time either. And so you have to think about what this game means for USC, what this game means for Notre Dame. And that's when this starts to become a very, very, very interesting conversation. You add into the fact that this is the 20th anniversary of the Bush Push, something that USC's Twitter page felt like putting out there. They said happy anniversary, and it was the play where Matt Leinart got his way pushed into the end zone. You add into the fact that this could be the last time that these two teams meet in the regular season. Adds a lot of context to this one. And it's so meaningful. We spent a lot of the day on Tuesday this week talking about what this game meant to all of us. There were people in the chat talking about their memories for the Notre Dame USC game. There was a lot of people talking about, they remember the first time they went to see that game in person. I talked about sitting down and watching it with my dad. And I'm sure a lot of USC fans have the same memories on their side as well. It's what you love out of college football rivalries, man. And you hope big picture that it continues. If USC wants to continue being a certain type of way about this rivalry, then I guess it is what it is. And unfortunately, we might not get to see this next season. I hope that changes. But fact of the matter is they have a huge matchup on Saturday. And it's one that I am really, really excited about diving into and predicting. So typically, like we do here, I'll go first. I'll give my prediction. I'll give how what the final score is, who I think is going to win, and how I see this game playing out. And to get us started, I do have Notre Dame winning. I have them winning 34-24 over USC. I do see this being a double-digit game. Going back to 2019, the victor of this game has won by double digits. Happened in 21, 22, 23, and it happened last season. I think that trend continues this Saturday. Look, fact of the matter is USC hasn't had a whole lot of success inside of Notre Dame Stadium since 2011. Notre Dame Stadium at night is a tough environment to play in. If you've ever been to a game inside of Notre Dame Stadium at night, you guys know what I'm talking about. You can ask Clemson how that goes. You can ask USC how that goes. Every game in South Bend against USC has been played under the lights since 2011, which is really cool to say. And that's the last time that USC won was 2011. Offensively, this unit has to get back to who they were against Texas A&M, against Purdue, and against Arkansas. So what does that mean? That means being efficient. That means finishing drives. That means punching it in the red zone, putting points on the board in the red zone, something that we talked about earlier this week. And then defensively, they have to continue their aggressive philosophy and not make the Al Golden mistake. This is one of the games where not a lot of Notre Dame fans can sit back and say, man, I wish Al Golden was back. Because let's be real about something, folks. Lincoln Riley bested Al Golden 2 of the 3 times that they faced each other. And the one year that Al Golden really put his stamp on this rivalry was a year where Notre Dame didn't have anything to lose. They were 21st in the country. They already had 2 losses coming into this game. USC was undefeated, ranked 10th. Notre Dame was already out of the playoff discussion. So this is now Chris Ash's opportunity, along with his defensive coaching staff, to now put his stamp on this rivalry game and get it kicked off to a hot start. And that's something that I'm really hoping to see on Saturday from the defensive unit. Look, I think Notre Dame jumps on them early. Like I said, it's a night game. The crowd's going to be rocking. I don't know how some Notre Dame fans are. Let me know in the chat. But look, this is one where I'm getting the sense of it. I see it on the message boards at irishbreakdown.com, all of those different things. Notre Dame fans are kind of starting to believe again. A lot of people were hurt after the loss to Texas A&M. Super understandable. And I was one of those fans. Yes, I have this job, but I'm still also a Notre Dame fan at heart. And now I'm getting the sense that people are starting to believe again. And then you add the rivalry on top of it. This stadium is going to be going absolutely nuts. So I think Notre Dame jumps on them early. But like we've seen in games where Notre Dame gets a jump on USC, they'll battle back. 2019 is one of those games. I was watching that one earlier today. Notre Dame jumped out to, I think, a 17-3 lead at one point, and the final score was 30-27. So I think Notre Dame jumps on them early. It's a night game. The crowd's going to be rocking. But like we've seen in previous rivalries, USC is not going to go away. The second half is going to be crucial. I put up a piece on the premium message boards about Notre Dame's second half defense versus USC's second half offense. USC's only beaten Notre Dame 4 times since 2010, and every win, they outscored Notre Dame in the second half. I think that narrative changes. I don't think USC is going to be able to mount a comeback against this Notre Dame defense that's been clicking. They haven't allowed a single offensive point in the last 3 games in the second half. I think Notre Dame pulls away in the second half. Notre Dame's defense remains dominant, and they remain the dominant second half team that we know them to be. So I have Notre Dame winning 34-24 in South Bend. It's what my final score I'm going with, man, and I'm hoping that it comes true. I am absolutely hoping that it comes true. If you guys have a final score prediction in the chat, I know a lot of people like to put theirs in. Feel free to put it in. Let us know what you guys think too. Brian, what do you got?
All right. So, Trev, just a real quick thing. They just started doing drilling underneath my room. So it may get loud here, and I'm going to have to go down to the conference room here in a second. But just real quick, here's my thing, Trev. I love a lot of stuff that you're saying. This game is really going to come down to which team imposes their will on the other team. I think that's really the big thing is USC able to come out and impose their will on Notre Dame physically the way that they did Michigan. I don't think that they will because Notre Dame's not Michigan. Notre Dame's a better team, but we still have seen a little bit of an up and down team from Notre Dame this year. So they're going to have to find out can Notre Dame impose their will on USC the way that they did against NC State, Boise State, Arkansas, Purdue, but did not against Arkansas or against Miami and Texas A&M. And so it really is just sort of and that's kind of normal for this time of the year. What version most teams have kind of shown a little bit of something. I think that's what it comes down to is who imposes their will physically on the other team. And when it comes to prediction, I mean, you gotta pick a side, right? And I'm going with the side that I think that it's going to be Notre Dame. One thing that was weird, in my opinion, about the Texas A&M and Miami games is one thing Notre Dame has done under Marcus Freeman is they usually show up to play in the big games physically, like physicality-wise. Look, they got out coached and out athleted against Ohio State in 2022, And obviously there were some mistakes that cost them the game in 2023, but it's rarely been a game like maybe Louisville, Clemson in 2023. There's rarely been a game, especially the last 2 years, where Notre Dame just got out physicaled and outplayed in the trenches in games the way they did against Miami and Texas A&M. Well, what we've seen from Notre Dame in the last few weeks is a different type of Notre Dame team. And I think this Notre Dame team comes out fired up. I think this team comes out, excited. I know that you're hearing Danton Lynn talk about what Chad Bowden's helping with, all this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But this is still about the players on the field. It's still about the coaches, on the sidelines. And at the end of the day, I still feel like Notre Dame's the better team. And I look at potential factors in the game, windy, it's going to be rainy. Which team? That's why I think it's even more so that it's going to be about what team is the more physical team. And I just still feel like Notre Dame is that team. If Notre Dame comes out and plays their game, whether it's throwing the ball 15 times because it's rainy or 40 times because it's not, they're still, to me, the team that in both sides of the ball is more physical. The rain makes me a little bit nervous about the Notre Dame D-line because I do think there's a size disadvantage there, especially with Gabriel Rubio out for this game. But I still feel like Notre Dame is the more physical team. I think Notre Dame is still the better coach team, not by as much as it was last year. They've done a good job. Credit to USC and especially Danton Lynn. Every year he's there, they make fewer and fewer mistakes week after week. But I just still feel like Notre Dame's the better team. I still think they're better in the trenches. I think they've got the better quarterback. I think they've got the better skill talent on offense when you encompass all of it. And, yes, USC's got great receivers. So does Notre Dame. USC's got great tight ends. So does Notre Dame. With their top two backs out, like Notre Dame already had the running back advantage. But now with Jordan and Sanders out, it's a significant advantage. So then it comes down to, okay, whose line plays better? And I think it's going to be Notre Dame's offensive line. I think the defense will not revert back to what it was against Miami, Texas A&M, and Purdue, but I also don't know that it's going to look like it did the last 2 weeks from a results standpoint, just because I think USC is the better team compared to the last two teams. But I think we see a similar performance, Trevor, where they are disruptive. You're going to give up your big plays to USC. They're going to move the ball at times. They're going to score points. It's just, can you come up with enough stops to allow your own offense to win this game? And I think that's ultimately what Notre Dame is going to do. So taking the weather into effect, and the fact that you're missing Gabriel Rubio and Ashton Craig, at center and nose tackle, that's a problem. I still think Notre Dame is going to the better team, and I have Notre Dame winning 31-24 is how I have this game playing out. My score prediction has changed as we've gotten closer to Saturday, and the calls for rain get stronger and stronger and stronger. If it was more of a dry night, Trev, I would probably have this more 38-24 type of game, maybe 41-27-24 type of game. But I think with the weather being what it is, I see a little bit of a tighter game. Both teams are going to have to rely on the run a little bit more, but I think Notre Dame's still a better team. So I'm going Notre Dame 31, USC 24.
I like that. You and I both have Notre Dame covering, like I said at the start of the show, their spread on FanDuel. Notre Dame is favored right now by 9.5 points. Actually, I have them. You have USC covering the 9.5 spread. So
hope I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I said I hope I'm wrong. I hope it ends up being a more convincing game, but
I hear you. Oh, I hear you. One of my touchdowns, I forgot to dive into this. One of my touchdowns is a defensive touchdown. Notre Dame has scored on defense in their last two games against USC. They scored on defense in 23, scored on defense twice in 2024. So I see that trend continuing this Saturday as well. So Brian, again, recap his prediction, 31-24 Notre Dame wins, minus 34-24 Notre Dame wins. We both have the Irish getting the victory and keeping the jeweled shillelagh in South Bend. Brian, let's talk some game records. And like we always do, we split it up between offense and defense. And we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball. I'll get us started. For game records on offense, this one was relatively simple for me. And it is a big game. We talked about him on Wednesday and Tuesday. We talked about him all throughout this week. And this is potentially CJ Carr's only opportunity to play in the Notre Dame USC game, which is a crazy thing to say. But he's my first game wrecker. I liked his performance against NC State. I thought he managed the game well against Boise State. These are the games that the lights are on you. It's for the Miamis. It's for the Texas A&Ms. And to some degree, he passed both of those tests relative to where he was at coming into the game. It was his first start against Miami. I wasn't expecting him to look like how he looked against Arkansas. Against Texas A&M at night, it was his first start inside of Notre Dame Stadium. Wasn't expecting him to look like how he did against NC State and Boise and moments against Purdue. But now you have 6 starts under your belt. USC comes to town. This is the biggest rivalry that Notre Dame has. CJ Carr is going to have to play like, especially now when you factor in the elements, he's going to have to do a better job managing the offense. I think D'Anton Lynn is going to try to do things on defense to try to confuse him pre and post snap. CJ Carr is going to have to play a clean game. He's coming off of a game where he threw his first interception since Texas A&M. Taking care of the football with the elements is going to be huge. Commanding the offense is going to be huge. Keeping your composure is going to be a huge factor in this game. So, Brian, my first game wrecker is quarterback CJ Carr.
No, I dig it. Mine's Jeremiah Love. I look at games like this, Trevor, and to win a game like this, you need your stars to play like stars, right? Like, this is when your legacy is defined. And I do think that's something that Jeremiah Love cares about. Not that he obsesses over it, like I care about my legacy, but I think it's something that's important to him. He wants to be known as someone who was a great player and a winner and all those type of things, as great players should want to be known that way. And how do you get defined as a great player? It's games like this. This is what you're known for. And so I think that he's gonna be a big part of this game. Running the ball, passing the ball. I mean, he was going off on USC in the first half last year. I mean, the Notre Dame running backs as a duo were elite against them last year. I mean, Jeremiah had just over 90 yards rushing, and he played one series of the third quarter.
99.
Then Jadarian comes off the bench and has 112 yards, almost all of it in the second half. It was 112, right, Trev? I think is what that number was for him.
112 or 111, I don't remember.
Yeah, and so, I mean, they both went off, and so you could put Jeremiah and Jadarian here, but I'm specifically focusing on Jeremiah because I think this is the game where you get back to having the impact in the run game and the pass game, and potentially even as a blocker in this game. So I just have a feeling that Notre Dame is going to need Jeremiah Love to play like the star running back he is if they're going to win this game. And so I'm going Jeremiah Love as my first game wrecker.
I love it. I love that pick. And for a lot of those reasons, that's why for my second pick, I'm going with Malachi Fields. This is why you got brought to South Bend. It's for games like this. As cool as your 66-yard touchdown was that was celebrated by a backflip against Purdue, it was great. I watch it all the time. That's not why you were brought to South Bend. It wasn't for Purdue. It wasn't for Boise State. It wasn't for NC State. It's not for Syracuse. It's not for Navy. It was for games like USC at home at night. Notre Dame finally has a weapon in the boundary that is now a really viable part of their offense. And we talked about the matchup yesterday. He's going to be facing a 6'3" corner. So it's not going to be an easy test for him. But this is why Notre Dame went out, got you in the transfer portal to bring you in and give CJ Carr, or at the time, whoever was going to start a quarterback, a weapon, a viable weapon in the boundary. Malachi Fields is going to have to be that guy. Going to have to be that guy. Jaden Greathouse is still questionable. Eli Raridan is coming off a 100-yard game. D'Anton Lynn's a smart coach. He's not going to let number 9 go crazy on this defense. Malachi Fields is coming off of a game with 1 catch for 20 yards. NC State did a good job of taking him away. Malachi Fields, also Mike Denbrock, is going to have to do a good job of finding different ways to scheme him the football, whether that's moving him from field to boundary, motioning him into the slot, motioning him into a stack. But Malachi Fields is going to have to be a game changer in this one because at the end of the day, short and sweet, this is why you got brought to South Bend. So Brian, Fields is my second game wrecker.
I'm there with you. I have it as my third. So for all the reasons you talked about, that's why you brought Malachi Fields here. It was not to beat up on Purdue. It was not to beat up on NC State and Arkansas. It was to win games like this. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. My number 2 is Eli Raridan. And it's all encompassing. A lot of my picks because of the weather are all encompassing. Eli Raridan's going to have a big game blocking. He's going to have some tough catches in this game. Maybe he's a red zone weapon. I still don't understand why, with all their red zone struggles, they don't lean more on their 6'4", 225-pound pounder receiver and their 6'7", 250-plus-pound athletic tight end. I mean, like sometimes you don't have to overthink it. Sometimes it's just my dude's better than your dude, and throw the ball up there. And that's why I have Eli here. In every phase of the game, Eli has to have a big day. I don't know that they can run the ball as effectively as they need to win this game if Eli doesn't have a big day. I think he's going to have to make some important catches and some tough catches in this game as well. So I think Eli Raridan's going to have to play. And he's in a game where the other team has stud tight ends as well. They got 2 of them. And so you're going to need him to say, hey, look, anything you can do, I can do better type of thing when it comes to, not that he's matched up against Lake McCree or Walker Lyons, but it's kind of like in that kind of game, you're going to need guys to do that. And so that's why he is my number 2 game record.
No, I love that pick, obviously. But I do, in all seriousness, I do love that pick. We talk about indirect matchups here all the time. We talked about Notre Dame's running back room versus USC's running back room, and now the indirect matchup with the tight ends. I like that a lot. My third and final game record on offense is more of a group. It's not necessarily one individual player, but it's the interior of the offensive line. The injury to Ashton Craig stinks. It does. And it's unfortunate for that young man that he's not now in back-to-back seasons going to be able to participate in a Notre Dame USC game. But at the end of the day, like Brian said at the start of this is football, and people get hurt. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate aspect to the game. But now it's time for Joe Otting to step into the limelight, and he's going to have no time to kind of get his wits about him. He's getting kind of thrown into the fire. And the interior of this offensive line, guards specifically, Billy Schrouth and Gerby Lambert, are going to have to do a lot to help pick him up and help support him in his first start. Billy Schrouth a little bit more than Gerby Lambert, because I don't know how much you want to put on a redshirt freshman going into, what would this be, his 7th start of his career. But Billy Schrouth played alongside Joe Otting the entire spring because Ashton Craig was out coming back from his first knee injury. But the interior of this offensive line has a unique task. They don't have the size of, an Arkansas interior defensive line with Ian Gefford and Cameron Ball, but they're very long. They're all 6'5", they're 295. Their biggest guy, Keyshawn Silvery, 6'4", 315. So this is going to be a unique test for this Notre Dame interior offensive line. They're going to have to perform, like we talk about on this show all the time. When quarterbacks get pressured up the middle, that throws a lot of things off. And we saw that happen at times against Miami. We saw it happen at times against Texas A&M. So they're going to have to really be sound up the middle. In the run game, you don't want your running backs making their first move 2 to 3 yards in the backfield. How does that happen? You get immediate penetration up the middle. You want a prime example of that happening? Go watch the tape from last week. Brandon Cleveland had himself a day in South Bend, Indiana last Saturday because he was able to get quick penetration. He was quick off the ball, but he's a little bit bigger than what some of the other USC defensive linemen are. So with that being said, I have the interior of Notre Dame's offensive line being my 3rd game record. They're going to have a big one, Brian. I know you said Malachi Fields was your 3rd. Did you have another one? Okay.
Yeah, Eli and Jeremiah. So we're good. We can go over the defense.
Right on. Game records on defense, and this is the side of the ball that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on, myself included, and they're going to have a really tough task in front of them. Where I'm starting with my game records on defense, and I wrote this before the Gabriel Rubio injury was released, but it still stays true, if not more so now than ever. My first game record is another group, and it's the interior defensive line. Now with Gabriel Rubio out, your biggest interior defensive lineman in the rotation. He has been one of your most consistent interior defensive linemen against the rush. And he's actually been able to generate quite a bit of pressure, despite his strength not being a pass rusher. That's a big loss. So what does that mean? Jared Dawson is going to have to step up, really continue playing the way that he's going to have to. Jason Onye, it's time, brother. Like, it is now time to be the person that we heard about all fall. It's time to be the person that you have had the potential to be. And there's no better opportunity to break out than when you play USC at home at night. Elijah Hughes has been getting more reps. He's going to have to be somebody that rotates and is impactful in his snaps. Then, of course, we all know what Donovan Hinish is capable of. We talked yesterday about the interior Notre Dame pass rush is going to have to win some of their matchups against a pretty big USC offensive line. So it's going to be a collective effort like it was at the start of the season, a collective effort to help replace Riley Mills and Howard Cross. But Brian, you said something that was really impactful at the start of the show, man. This isn't unfamiliar territory for Notre Dame. They went into last year's USC game without Howard Cross, another one of their impactful interior defensive linemen. So it's unfortunate. It's a part of the game, but the interior of Notre Dame's defensive line is going to have a game on Saturday night.
For me, it's a lot of the similar stuff. It's Jared Dawson. I think Jared Dawson has been their second best run defender up the middle with behind Gabriel Rubio. So with Gabriel Rubio out, you're going to need Jared Dawson to step up. It's no different than what you said about Malachi Fields. This is what you brought Jared Dawson here to do. You didn't come here to have him dominate Purdue and Navy and Boston College. You brought him here to help you win games like this. And this is a game where you need those guys to step up and make those plays. So I think, and we've talked about this, Trev, Jared Dawson, when he's on his game and playing, is been a force against the run. And you're going to need him to do that again in this game as well. He was my number one. So we kind of see it the same way. You went with Onye and the interior as a whole. I'm just going specific with Jared Dawson because I feel like he's got to really step up and fill that void that was left by Rubio. But yours is actually, to me, brings even more to it because you're going to also need Onye to be better. You're going to need Elisha Hughes to be better. Maybe Armel Mukam plays a little bit. You're going to need that whole unit to play better. My focus is more on Jared Dawson's ability to play the run very well, what you're going to need from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Skill set wise, it's almost an immediate replacement. Different body types, but effectiveness is still relatively equal. My second game record, and typically I work my way, front to back. I'll go one D-line, one linebacker, one secondary. This week I'm switching it up a little bit, and I have two in the secondary, and the first one's Leonard Moore. I think he's the best cornerback in the country. But again, like we talked about Malachi Fields, like we talked about Jeremiah Love, these are the games where you have to be the best cornerback in the country. You have to effectively shut down one side of the field, especially with the offense that's coming to town Saturday night. He's going to have his matchups with Jacoby Lane. He's going to have his matchups with Tanuk Hines. At times, he'll probably have matchups with Mekhi Lemon. Lincoln Riley does a good job of moving his receivers around the offense. Leonard Moore is going to have his opportunity. And I know that he also remembers the game last year in Los Angeles where his individual performance was good. But Leonard Moore strikes me as somebody where, hey, us as a unit, we're not there. There are things that I could have done better too. I know he also remembers the secondary's performance last year, giving up over 300 passing yards to Jaden Maeva last year. So my second game record on defense, for the simple fact of your dudes got to be dudes, Leonard Moore is going to have to be one of those this weekend, man.
That's exactly why I'm going with Drake Bowen as my number 2 game record. Look, again, considering the weather and how we expect it to be, USC is not going to stop throwing the football, but they've been relying on the run a lot this year. They're averaging over 220 rushing yards per game. The run game was a big part of what they did against Michigan last week. That's not going to be any different now, especially with the weather the way it's going to be. And it's not just the rain, it's the wind gusts. And so they're gonna try to run the football, and that was already going to be part of what they do, and they're going to do it even more now. And you need your middle linebacker to have a big day. And for Drake Bowen, it's not just what you do, but you've got to get everybody lined up. You've got to make sure everybody knows what's going on. You have a big role in everybody kind of doing their job the right way. And he's going to have to play a big role in that. And so, but then also he's going to have to be a force against the run, in my opinion. He's going to have to be a force in the pass game as well. So as a blitzer, you need Drake Bowen to have he's a captain. He's a set 2-year starter. I think he's an outstanding player. So in a game like this, and I don't even mean because of the conditions, I just also mean because it's a huge game. You need like you said, your dudes got to play like dudes. You're spot on about Leonard Moore. I feel the same way about Drake Bowen. He's got to be a dude in this game. And Chris Ash has to allow him to be a dude in this game. And you could make the same case with him, with the linebackers like you made about the interior. It's not just Drake. It's also Kingston. It's Jaden Ausberry, Jalen C. They all got it mad for him. They all got to step up and make plays. But at the end of the day, you need the leader in the room to set the example, set the tone. And I think he did that against NC State last week. Like they tried to test Drake early in the game, and he said, not today. And so you're going to need him to do that again this week. And look, you got a bye week coming up next week. So you're letting it all hang out. I mean, you're letting it all go. You got a couple days to rest after this game. And I think Drake Bowen's going to bring that to the table. So he's my number 2.
I love that pick. I was struggling trying to find one linebacker, and from some of my I didn't want half of my game records to be like groups, even though it is true, especially in a matchup like this. But I love the Drake Bowen pick. He was definitely going to be one of mine. If my last guy, and I'm pretty sure you guys know where I'm going with this, the last game record has to be Christian Gray. I understand, and some of it's just purely for the story arc. I went back and forth between Christian Gray and Dallas Golden and or Devontae Smith, whoever lines up at nickel. But I think the storyline with Christian Gray is a little bit too enticing for me. He got picked on last year a lot in this game. He was targeted 12 times, gave up 8 receptions for $130 and 2 touchdowns. A lot of the fans' wavering, I guess you could say, commitment to Christian Gray started in the USC game last season. And yes, it's looked like he's turned some things around. We're seeing the Christian Gray of old. But again, context matters. We're seeing the Christian Gray of old against NC State and against Boise State. Now it's time to do it against the team that gave you a lot of fits last season, a team that is openly picked on you. And now it's time for him to be that guy. A lot of people in the offseason said Leonard Moore right now is their best corner. But Christian Gray has the opportunity to be the best guy in the room. And these are the games where you take that leap. NC State has a good passing offense. We ran through the numbers last week. Boise State was an effective offense. Arkansas had a dangerous offense. But in games like this, it's time where you need Christian Gray to be who we thought he was going to be at the start of 2024. So my last game record is Christian Gray, Brian.
Of all the game records I'm picking, you're picking, offense, defense, special teams, honorable mentions, everything. That's the one that I hope more than any other comes true. Just for the story part of it, because he is a great kid.
Yeah.
And you'd love to see sort of that redemption arc for Christian Gray. And it also would have a huge impact in the game. I'm going secondary as well, but I'm going Tay Johnson. I think when USC to slow down this USC offense, your safeties have to play well. And if USC's been paying attention to Don Shula the last couple games, they may not want to go at him a ton in certain areas. Don will have to be a big part of it. But I think Tay is going to be put in position to make a lot of plays, and he's going to have to make them. Shut down the run, he's going to have an impact. Handle the tight ends, he's going to have an impact. Helping out over top of Mekhi Lemon, he's going to have an impact. I mean, he's the guy that you most likely will use to help double Mekhi Lemon if that's going to be there. Ball gets thrown up because pressure gets there, as we saw with Xavier Watts last year and the year before that. You know, like people talk about Caleb Williams is going to be having nightmares of Xavier Watts. No, Lincoln Riley's going to be having nightmares of Xavier Watts, and he's thankful that he's not there anymore. Hopefully, Tay can start his own legacy. So I just have a feeling that Tay has been just building and playing well, but there's going to become that breakout game where the nation takes notice. You and I talk. I mean, you remember the shows we were doing back in 2023 before USC about how well Xavier Watts was playing against NC State and some of those other teams. He was playing well, but nobody nationally was talking about Xavier Watts until the USC game. And I'm hoping that Tay can because that's when legacy should start to be kind of formed, right? Is in those big moments. And, I mean, Ricky Waters had a lot of success against Notre Dame. The only play that I definitely will always remember is the punt return against Michigan in the opener. I mean, you think of all the big moments, of all the plays I remember about Rocket, two of my favorite plays were, him getting the deep ball against USC in 88 as a freshman, 1 versus 2, and then the kick return in 1990 against Miami. It's the 2 kick returns against a top 10 Michigan team. I mean, you remember what they do in the big games. I don't remember the 2 kick returns against Rice nearly as much as I remember the 2 kick returns against Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, he did have 2 kick returns against Rice. And that's where I think Tay has a chance to kind of come up big and announce himself that, like, hey, I'm that dude. And they're going to need him. That's the other part of it too, Trev.
No, I love that pick. Big games like this is when players are able to cement their legacy. And I know you and I both are going to be feeling really, really good about our predictions if a lot of these game records come to fruition. So that is 100% for sure. But folks, that's going to do it for part 1 of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. But make sure you don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to dive into a big preview for this weekend's games across college football. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. Also, be sure to check out me and Vince tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the CFB Nation channel. This week's edition of the Spread Option. Not going to want to miss that one either. Lots of great games to talk about. As always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.